Good morning to our audience in India and good day to everyone joining us globally. India has embarked on the DPDP compliance journey. Several companies have started the employee awareness and solution deployment phase. Today, we are here to discuss the practical challenges of a successful compliance journey, how organizations need to operationalize successful deployment across people, processes, technology, and partners without slowing innovation. This session focuses on the real world challenges, staff awareness and training, understanding business processes, preparing the right infrastructure, identifying the applications for seamless integration, and finally, mapping compliance need to the technology solutions. Let's get started. Joining us today are leaders executing privacy at scale. We have Ramesh Sharma, Senior Vice President at Fino Payments Bank, driving regulated operations in high volume digital ecosystems. Welcome, Ramesh.
Thank you, Damodar.
We have Richa Mehta, Regional Privacy and DPO, Asia Pacific region at DHL Supply Chain, leading privacy across complex global supply chains. Welcome, Richa.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
We have Kartikeya Raman, Associate Partner at Grand Thornton, Bharat, advising enterprises on governance, risk, and compliance. Welcome, Kartik.
Thank you, Damodar.
We have Mahi Gupta, our Vice President of
Thank you for
Privacy
having me here.
Strategy at Data Safeguard, helping organizations build privacy awareness and operational readiness. Welcome, Mahi.
Thank you.
We have Sudhir Sahu, our founder and CEO at Data Safeguard. Welcome, Sudhir.
Thank you, Damodar. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Richa. Thank you, Kartikeya. Thank you, Mahi, for joining this session.
And I am your Damodar Sahu, your moderator for today. So, segment one, regulatory and advisory lens. So, Kartik, from an advisory and regulator point of view, you are facing a lot of prospective customers. Where do organizations struggle most with DPDP compliance?
So I think organizations are struggling most with DPDPA compliance when it comes to know where the personal data is, wherever the data is, are they putting the safeguards that they need to put with respect to DPDP? Because as we know, DPDPA, we are doing execution, which is evidence driven. So the biggest gaps that are appearing are in fault. When the accountability is not there, the business needs to be accountable, whereas we have IT, information security, or maybe somebody from legal becoming accountable. We have to into them as well as flowing outside their network. We have to get that in place.
Okay.
And that there has to be data governance, data management, and security. So not only the policies, not only on paper we need to be compliant, but also in the way we are data, we are treating it, we are respecting it.
Let me go back to Ramesh Sharma, the industry reality. Ramesh, from an enterprise and banking ecosystem perspective, what practical challenges stand out?
Yeah, thank you, Damodar, for having me. The DPDP Act, the new Data Privacy Act, which has become an act now. I mean, leaving aside the legal definitions and all, what it really means for us when it comes to day-to-day work, there are a number of challenges. For us, it's not just a tick in the box. We have to keep a lot of things in mind when we are not only trying to implement, but also making sure that we, being a regulated entity, are in line with the guidelines set by the Act. Talking about the challenges, Damodar, first of all, in our industry, the sheer volume and the speed of data, that itself is a very, very big challenge for us. In banking, when we talk about the volume, the speed of data, you can think about thousands of or maybe millions of transactions happening every second. Think about KYC checks, think about all other fraud related checks. So you're talking about speed, and you're talking about data moving between different systems at any point in time. And you cannot slow them down, yeah, right? Just because there is a law, there's an act, you cannot slow them down. So business will not allow that. So that's a very huge challenge for us to deal with. The second challenge is making sure that everyone is on board, making sure that everyone is responsible. It's not just an act. Just like how information security is everyone's responsibility, DPDP is also everyone's responsibility, especially the people at the edge. If you are having a branch manager, or if you have a person working on the ground, not being aware of what DPDP is all about and how to contribute in order to comply with the act, you will have a problem. You can write all kind of policies, you can write all kind of processes sitting in your HO or headquarter or boardroom. But if you don't have people aware of it and fully bought into the idea of DPDP, we'll have a problem. For a bank, typically we'll have multiple touch points and multiple people involved while dealing with customers. And each one of them should be very well aware of what it requires for us to be compliant with DPDP. So that's another challenge, taking along everyone. The number 3 challenge for us is our legacy systems. Banks runs on systems, core banking and mainframe. These systems are decades old. When they were built, when they were implemented, there was no idea of DPDP, right? They were not designed to be data aware. They did not know the customer will tomorrow come back and say, hey, I have a right to be forgotten, right? They were not built like that. They were not designed like that. So how do we now make sure that we are able to build these systems? And we have to do that. There's no choice. We have to go back and refresh the technology and somehow make sure that we are able to make those systems work according to the new law. So that's number 3. And then finally, the number 4 is, the misconception around the fact that this is one-time project. You just do it once and you have some set of processes, policies written up, you hire some consultants, you deploy some systems, and that's about it. But that's not going to help you. When regulator is going to come to your bank, they are going to expect consistency. They are going to expect the same set of standards applied across different departments. Whether you talk about assets, you talk about liabilities, you will have to make sure that you are consistent and you are able to demonstrate the same set of standards across the board. So finally, when it comes to DPDP, it's an ongoing journey, just like anything else. Where we are subject to scrutiny, where we are subject to dealing with principals on one hand, and the processors on the other hand. Then finally, we are also dealing with the regulators. So it's an ongoing journey. That's a challenge for us, Damodar, overall, from an industry perspective.
Great insight, Ramesh. Thank you for highlighting all the challenges. Yeah, appreciate. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about the awareness and training. Mahi, awareness and training are often underestimated. And what are you seeing on the ground, Mahi?
So, thank you, Dr. Damo, for this question. I think I'd like to borrow some points from what Ramesh said, which is a
Yeah.
practical challenge that he's facing, which is all hands in buy-in, right? I think this is where the biggest challenge is. no fancy amount of policies, no fancy amount of procedures can actually bring DPDP into, or any, for that matter, any privacy regulation into, operation, until and unless you don't have people's buy-in. So that's one. And the second thing is, yes, training and awareness is often very underestimated in an enterprise landscape, for the sheer reason that we believe that compliance is a tick box activity. So once I have the policies in place, I'm compliant, right? But for compliance to be living in the enterprise, and for you to maintain, I would say, a consistent standard, it is very important for organizations to also sensitize the people who are actually dealing with the data, who are handling the data of the customers, and who are also working on that data, so that they know what is it that is expected as a contribution from their end in terms of data protection, and what are the things that they need to sensitize themselves and their colleagues around. um, I think one of the most underestimated value is of the fact that policies are written in legal language, right? Which are something, or which are the letters of law, which is not generally understood by people from a common background. So it is very difficult for a layman to understand, what is it that the policy wants to achieve. So this can only be achieved when you have role-based trainings, and role-based trainings are specific to their core business functions. I can't go and give a generic business training and say that, okay, this is what DPDP is expecting. That is not going to offer clarity, right? When it is role based, it is going to let them know that, this is what my work area is, this is what my work profile is, and from a privacy standpoint, these are the things that are expected out of me, right? And also, like Ramesh said, this DPDP compliance is not a one time activity. This is not, a tick box activity which can just be done today and be over with, right? The awareness in a similar way has to be continuous, it has to be measurable in nature, and it also has to be auditable, so that you're able to show for the fact that, people in your organization are sensitized around data protection policies, how to handle the data, and how to be able to work around data, because at the end of the day, we're living in a digital landscape, right? And you can't escape the presence of data being there in digital reality, right? And I think I've always said that to organizations, it's not really about getting all your policies fixed, but it is about being able to build a privacy first culture.
Yeah.
So, when a privacy first culture is built, that's when employees understand their individual role and contribution, in the data protection, rather than just signing off on a policy, or, just seeing a guideline being pasted on, their hallway. So, yeah.
No, superb. Thank you for your insight, Mahi. Let's talk about a little bit on the global DPO perspective. Richa, I want to come to you. You manage privacy across regions. How does DPDP compare personally?
That's a great question, Dr. Damodar. And because when you work across regions, you actually stop comparing laws on paper, because most of the laws on paper look very similar. The real difference, I feel, is when you try to run them in the middle of a business day. So if you look at DPDP in that context, what really stands out, I feel, is that it aligns really well with global privacy principles. It recognizes accountability, transparency, purpose limitation. All those terms are not unfamiliar to us. A very real challenge when we see people often say that the data goes through the global platform, so it's fine. But when you actually unpack that, questions start coming in: who has access to it, for what purpose, for how long does it sit there, and what happens if the consent changes? So I think those are the questions which are rarely answered upfront. So DPDP, I feel, just forces them into the open. On a practical example, I would say the closest would be the cross-border data movement. DPDP allows transfers of data outside, subject to government-notified restrictions, as you know. But on paper, that may sound like very straightforward. Operationally, I feel it just forces organizations to actually understand where that data goes, not just on a high level, but also, through shared services, global platforms, and also third-party tools. So in many organizations, I feel that visibility simply hasn't been needed in India before DPTB made it necessary. Another area I would like to flag is that when it like DPTP, as we know, is very grounded in consent. It's clearly consent forward. So while also recognizing different deemed consent scenarios in practice, this means that organizations shouldn't just think Mahi mentioned on trainings, they shouldn't just think it as a checkbox activity of getting the consent. They need to be clear about the purpose, how the consent is communicated, and what happens when consent is withdrawn. So I would say that's not just a legal nuance. Personally, for me, that's more of an operational challenge, especially when the data is sitting not just in a country or in a specific region, it's sitting across locations. And I think on a similar note, from what I see, vendor and processor dependency is where theory and reality would kind of diverge. Most organizations these days rely heavily on external platforms. There are service providers, there's SaaS providers to process personal data. That's extremely common. I feel the law just reinforces the accountability. It doesn't stop at signing a legal contract with them. There's so much beyond that. You have to be aware about the deletion requests, consent changes, incident respondent practices, how your vendor's responding to that. And finally, I feel there's scale. So when you're operating across regions, it's difficult to have just manual controls in place to hold everything together. When we rely on people remembering to update 5 systems when consent changes, or email trains to entertain data subject requests, that becomes very difficult. So that's why structured processes and automation really plays an important role in this. Not because they're fancy. I just feel that manually we can be inconsistent under pressure because of the crazy amount of workload we all are handling. So long story short, I know this was a monologue. Speaking purely from an operational lens, I would say BPTP represents India moving forward in a very mature privacy operating model. It's also not about copying other regimes, as we've seen globally. It feels more like building accountability into everyday operations. So organizations that already think globally, I think they'll naturally fit into the entire DPDP setup. But it does require an honest review of where data actually sits within your organization and how it's processed beyond the policy layer. So on paper, most organizations may look compliant, but DPTP is just testing whether they're compliant on a random Tuesday afternoon when things go south and when people are busy.
Super. No, great insight, Richa. Appreciate, and thank you so much for sharing all those, insightful topics. So let's talk about a little bit on the compliance mapping and execution. So I'll request Sudhir, how should companies in India prepare for a successful compliance journey?
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Damodar. So it's not just one pronged or one act or one aspect of becoming privacy compliant. Privacy will run across multiple different divisions, starting from staffing, starting from staff awareness training that Mahi talked about. Ramesh also talked about some of the practical challenges of business wanting to do some things, and a workflow that is already been established within a company, and you cannot break that workflow. You must follow that workflow. So it starts from staff awareness training, getting people to buy in. Also, when the training is done, we have to ensure that people who are being trained, they see the value of why they are being trained. So the adoption increases. And then you look at India being an emerging market, and privacy is new to India. So many companies are not aware of what DPDP means, what is the act, what are the rules, how do you define the rule. So they have been companies have been doing different things to become aware, become little mature in terms of understanding how they should go about doing it. But the practical challenge is that Metis, when they came up with the DPDP Act and then published the rules, The companies must start their journey, and Ramesh talked about a journey. It is not something that you do it 1 year, it is not 2 years, it's not 3 years. And Richa talked about, you start becoming compliant. By the time you become compliant, then cross-border data transfer, now you have to comply with multiple different jurisdictions, multiple different privacy compliance acts, be it GDPR or CCPA or PDPA or PDPL, depending on which part of the world that you are operating. And then comes DPDP Act into it. And then DPDP the complexity of DPDP Act, because it is much different from GDPR. It is not easy to just say we are GDPR compliant, so automatically we will become DPDP compliant. So understanding the different acts, the privacy compliance needs, and how they are written, and trying to implement different solutions in different aspects are the practical challenges that Indian companies will face going forward. It's a continuous and ever evolving journey, meaning the rules have been defined now. In about a year's time, the rules might change. There might be a 5% differentiation or a 10% differentiation. So they always have to watch out for it and also prepare that if the rules change, then how do we prepare for it? One of the things that every company should look at is that Ramesh talked about the legacy applications and the legacy systems, the core banking applications, the core healthcare applications that have already been in place for 10 years, 20 years, or even longer in some cases. They are not privacy by design compliant. They were never built with that intent. So it is difficult to make those applications, those systems, those processes to comply to the newer privacy requirements. So any new adoption that companies do in India, like an application they are bringing in or they're building an application, they should keep privacy by design in mind and build the application to be privacy compliant rather than trying to impose privacy on those applications going forward. Training the staff that we talked about, review and understand the business and technology workflows. Are we privacy compliant while conducting business the way that we are operating today? Preparing the right hardware infrastructure, because when you're trying to bring in technology solutions, the computing power that you need today, because 10 years of data that you already have and you have to do discovery of confidential data, it might be real-time systems, it might be historical, it might be individual files, unstructured data, semi-structured data, structured data, etc. You need to have the right computing power to be able to meet the deadline, because DPDP also has a timeline, 12 months, 18 months timeline. So to do all of these things, hardware infrastructure also plays a key role in ensuring that when you are starting your privacy journey and you have a timeline to reach, you have the right infrastructure and the abilities with the right people to be able to achieve those targets. Mapping the level requirements of DPDP. So when a company is selecting a technology solution or building one or adopting something that has already been there, the understanding the sections, the subsections of the act, understanding the rules, and how to map it to those technology solutions that you are selecting to deploy in your environment. That is going to be the most difficult part and the most practical challenge that every company is going to face. Why is that? Because many people assume and adopt based on some assumptions. Oh, yeah, this looks like a good solution, so we're going to take this solution and we can deploy it, and this will help us become compliant. But if the mapping is not right, it is going to fail and it's going to become difficult over a period of time. It will cost more time, it will cost more money, the company will become non-compliant, and that will lead to so much more complications, including fines, which are pretty significant in nature. How to create the solution? The solution should be automation. How much of automation that can be done that manual efforts will not scale, and also manual efforts will cause more error prone, and they will cause more difficulties and keep the company non-compliant. Gaps will form over a period of time that will become more and more difficult to identify. What gaps have we created by adopting manual processes and not adopting technological solutions that are automated in nature? So a unified privacy automation powered by AI technology will help in making this compliance journey much more easier and seamless for companies to adopt. And the practical challenges to some extent can be overcome by selecting the right kind of technological solution that will help the company become compliant. I'll stop here and back to you, Damodar.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sudhir. It's a great insight. Appreciate all the insight you have shared with our audience. So let's simplify DPDP execution into 5 steps. Discover, that means identify personal data across systems and vendors. Understand, map business processes and data flow. Enable, train teams and operationalize awareness. Automate, consent, DSR, PIA, compliance evidence, right? Then monitor and scale, continuous compliance and audit readiness. So DPDP is not a sprint, it's a long-term operating discipline. Rightly, all of you talk about DPDP. And let me come back to you again. Maybe you start with Ramesh. So what would be your quick closing reflection on DPDP?
Yeah, again, thank you. I think all the panelists have shared key insights. For me, I think my takeaway is the mindset shift.
Yeah.
On one hand, practical challenges around what is already there, we need to take care of that. But when I talk about mindset shift, I'm talking about what is coming up new in your environment. So, talk about new applications being designed today or being built today. These are the new areas where you have to be aware that it cannot be an afterthought. Compliance around privacy has to be a part of your design. Privacy by design is the key here. So you cannot just continue to increase your landscape around not being compliant because you are already dealing with something which is legacy to your environment. So that's very, very key for me.
Thank you, Ramesh. Richa?
I think my philosophy has always been to not build like a very fancy gold-plated privacy program, just to build something that's workable, so that you can, run your everyday business in alignment to that. So in real life, I would feel that DPDP is tested already in everyday moments. Sharing a file, onboarding a tool, or working with a vendor. I think if those moments are handled well, the compliance will just take care of itself.
Great. Kartik?
Yeah, so my 2 cents and my parting thoughts are that DPDPA reshapes our organizations, forces the changes in the business models, the customer journeys, the digital products. So it is personalization, cross-selling, customer trust, liability exposure. So with all this, it is just not IT operations, information security. At the business, the board level, the core board level needs to sit and think about it, that what is it that they need to do now? Back to you.
Thank Mahi?
Sure. So I think my takeaway is, around the fact that I think data governance is going to be the foundation of any privacy execution. And also the fact that, compliance has to scale with the business growth, right?
Yeah.
However, the business is growing without having to alter too many business processes. Compliance has to scale itself. And also, like I said, a strong awareness program has the ability to convert policy into day-to-day practice, which is achievable, and which is also fabricable. It is duplicatable. You can duplicate it in each and every new employee that you're bringing on board. And I think it needs to be viewed with a lens that a consistent and a compliant DPDP program is going to earn the regulators' trust. And that is not just the regulators, but also your customers, also, the board in general, and also the people who are going to be your future customers. So it's very important for you to keep a holistic approach.
Thank you, Mahi. Sudhir?
All right. Yeah, everybody talked about it. I don't think there is any subject left, but I'm going to repeat what Ramesh, Kartik, Richa, and Mahi talked about. So each one is important enough, but I really liked what Richa had to say, that not overcomplicating, understanding a business workflow and mapping the compliance requirements to that workflow. Understanding that people need awareness and helping people become aware, and understanding that it's a legal requirement, it's a business requirement, legalities involved, business workflows will be impacted. But don't go to the business and try to say change everything that you are doing, because the business will not be able to sustain it. Right? Map your compliance to business workflow rather than asking the other way around. And obviously, because it is new, companies have to look at all the mapping of the different rules, and how do we map to those different rules and make the program, design our privacy compliance requirements in such a way that the minimum impact is there on the business, while we allow them to do the innovation. We come in underneath as a platform to enable rather than that enablement will be the key feature in helping the business understand, right? Kartik talked about it's a boardroom, it's a core boardroom discussion, yes. But also at the same time, do not make this compliance journey a burden for anyone in the business. Then the business will say, well, it's a cost structure for us, and we really don't back it because we don't want to do it. We are forced to do it, right? Help them understand that if we allow you to do the innovation, you can create the brand value will increase, the revenue increase will be there. You can actually create top line revenue increase by creating a brand. Now look at it, right? 1.5 plus billion people, and how many people are getting impacted because of the data breach, and how much of synthetic fraud happens out of India, right?
Yeah.
DPDP came into existence because of that, but it should not become a burden for a company. Seamlessly help integrate privacy compliance into the workflow and help a business continue to innovate so they can create top line revenue by creating brand value, trust value, and customer trust. The customer feels comfortable that this company is actually respecting my privacy opinion, and my data, my personal data, is being correctly handled and processed by this company. So these are the things, these are practical challenges that every country has gone through that have become compliant, and India just needs to follow. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Sudhir. I think we are on top of the hour. Thank you, Ramesh, Mahi, Richa, Kartik, and Sudhir. So 2025 will be remembered as the year India moved from privacy intent to privacy execution. If you are a DPO, legal leader, or CISO, or technologist, or business head, DPDP is now a board level responsibility. Thank you all for joining us today, and stay connected for our upcoming LinkedIn Live and DPDP deep dives. Namaskar, and thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
our
you.
esteemed speakers. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar.